This video is by request. I'm going to talk about building a custom precision rifle centered around a Remington 700 footprint action, which is my strong recommendation because you're going to have the widest compatibility with aftermarket parts. And my opinion generally right now, based on my experience, is that any of the Remington 700 clones that you can buy are probably fine. And so you don't really have to worry about quality so much as just feature set. Which is super cool. I feel like we're in kind of the golden age of precision shooting because there's just so many great options. When you're trying to decide what you want, I think you should base your decision off of three main features that are going to be like the primary functional differences between these actions. The first one is whether or not your action has an interchangeable bolt head. The advantage to having that is you can easily switch between calibers just by swapping a barrel, which is very easy to do now. And so if you get an action with an interchangeable bolt head, it expands the future capability of that rifle significantly without having to build a whole new rifle. The second major thing you need to consider is the bolt throw. The lug configuration is going to affect how far you have to cam over that bolt to cock the firing pin and then load another round. Some people really prefer the shorter bolt throws. Some people don't care. The advantage being they feel like it's faster, you have more scope clearance. Disadvantage being that you need more force to cam over the bolt. So that's the second major thing, and that's something you really need to try for yourself to see if that's a concern for you at all. And then lastly, the ejection method. You have what you think of with like an AR-15, which is an ejector that's just a plunger on a spring. And then you have a hooked extractor holding the case in place. And then you also have this mechanical variety that is more controlled, and it allows you to decide when the case leaves the action, if at all. So you can see here I've got that the Kelbly, which has that inertial ejection method. So as I sit the round, so you can see as I fit the round, this is a dummy round here, in the action. Hopefully the camera can see that. It's just sitting freely, it's not moving, but when I move the bolt to the rear of the action, the back of the case is going to encounter a protrusion there, which is going to remove the case from the action. And that can be good or bad depending on your perspective. That, I would say, is the deviation from the standard ejection method that you probably think of. And so I would say from a functional standpoint, that is one of the large differences that you need to consider. So you have your interchangeable or not bolt heads. You have your throw, how far the bolt needs to cam over, and then your ejection method. I think those three things represent the biggest functional differences between the actions, and you really just have to decide on those three things and then price. And then you have a whole list of small things between manufacturers that you can pick, like interchangeable bolt knobs, right? So here the Kelbly, you've got this nice knurled bolt knob that I like quite a bit. And then on my Defiance here, let me get this in camera, you can see I've had to put tape over this because it was too smooth, and I didn't realize, this is my first custom gun, I didn't realize I didn't need a smooth bolt knob. However, this does unscrew, so if I ever got around to it, I could always just replace that. So that's a nice feature to have. And then you have the use of trigger hangers, if that's something you're interested in. How the scope rail is attached. So this Defiance is one piece with the action. The Kelbly is bolted on, if you care about that sort of thing. AICS or AW compatibility, depending on how you want your magazines to be configured. The finish, fluting. So you can see the Kelbly here is probably nitrided, or maybe anodized, and then has some deep flutes. The Defiance is fluted but stainless. Those are some options. The availability of pre-fits is actually, I almost made this one of the core components, but there's just so many now that I would call it secondary. How you want to attach your barrels. So for example, this Kelbly here was installed by gunsmiths, right? So he did all the head spacing and he spun the barrel on and that's done, and I don't have to think about it. But with the 6.5 here, where I replace the barrel more often, you can see that I have the Remage system, which is a Savage style barrel nut that allows me to swap the barrels quickly at home. And then you have prefits now for all these actions because the manufacturing is so good and the tolerances are so tight, you can just get a barrel and torque it on with a torque wrench and be done. And you want to, when you're looking at actions, you want to decide whether or not that's something that's important to you and go to your favorite barrel manufacturers and see if they have prefits available for the action that you're looking at. So for instance, Bergara is often cited as a good choice for starters because it is technically a Remington 700 footprint, which means it's going to be compatible with any of these chassis or stocks, but a lot of the prefits that you might get for an action like this isn't going to fit with a Bergara because of the bolt head has different geometry. So that's just one of the things you need to consider. And then I wasn't going to mention it, but action length, you have short, medium, long for all of the normal calibers that you're thinking of for practical shooting, so not magnums. That short action is going to be what you want. So I can only talk about what I've used extensively. I think I've been behind like every major action manufacturer at least once, and that's kind of where my opinion comes from, that they're all great, or they're all at least good, and you probably won't be unhappy no matter who you buy. And so you're kind of in a cool position of you just get what features you want and you don't really have to worry about anything else. I've been using Defiance. That was my first action. Let me see if I can get this in frame here. So I would never buy a Defiance anymore. I've pretty much moved away from them, but I still happily use this one. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a 2-lug, no interchangeable bolt head. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's kind of antiquated. I've really come to like the controlled bolt, the controlled round feed of the Kelbly. But there's nothing wrong with this, and I've got more rounds on the Defiance than I do anything else, certainly, just over the years. So this is the Kelbly Atlas Tactical. I never went out looking for this. I just told my gunsmith to build me what he thought was best. And I'm super glad that I did because it introduced me to this ejection system, which I've really come to love. I love the control that it affords me, and I love that it's not dragging my case necks on the inside of my chamber as I'm ejecting the rounds. So big fan of these. I believe they have a trigger hanger, which I don't care one way or the other about. But I could be wrong. I haven't opened this up in a while. So this is a Zeus Terminus. This is worth taking a look at because this has 3 lugs, which means it's got a shorter bolt throw. I'm not sure if you can see that, but the advantage there to me is it gives me more clearance on this scope, which is pretty slick. Lots of space there. And I'll pull the bolt out so you can actually take a look at that. So these are the 3 lugs. So that's what allows that to happen. I'm a big fan of these actions. I would certainly consider these if I was building another rifle. Nothing wrong with them in the time that I've been using them. So this is my wife's rifle. This is Defiance Tenacity. Again, I don't know that I'd buy another Defiance, but look at the difference, if you can see this, with how close this is to the scope, because it's got that full bolt throw, which means as you come up to cock the rifle, you basically have to have your palm open or you're going to run into the scope. This one also is different in the sense that the scope rail here is not one piece with the action like it was with the Deviant Tactical. So you've got the typical top-down screws here holding that together if you care about that sort of thing. And you'll notice this is on a Remington as well. So this is just an easy spin on the barrel at home situation. All right, this is a Zermatt Origin. Oh, wait, let me check. Yeah, this is a Zermatt Origin. I had to double check. This one is different in a couple ways. This has the inertial ejection, so this is the controlled ejection, but it also has swappable bolt faces, which is super cool. So you can see this is able to be swapped out. This is here in 6.5, but you could easily exchange this for a 223 bolt face and go a different caliber like that, which I think is neat. And these have all been short action so far. So this is an actual Remington 700 action. You can see it's been upgraded with a bolt knob. I micro slicked it, which is a Cerakote coating that allowed me to make it a little bit smoother, I think. But certainly this has been fine, especially with a Criterion Remage barrel setup. If you're trying to do this on a budget, there's really no reason you can't do that. It's got a Trigger Tech trigger in here. Between the coating, the chassis, the barrel, it does a pretty good job. And the nice thing about starting with something like this is if you have something like this laying around, there's no reason you can't start building on it, because any of these other actions could be easily swapped in here if you wanted to replace this, which is another one of the big reasons why I think you should start in that Remington 700 platform, is just because it's going to be so easy to move up in the future. All right, and then while I have everything out here, I'm going to talk briefly about this. This is a Tikka, or this is a Tikka Action at least. Everything else pretty much has been changed. Let me show this in the big view here, okay? So this is the Tikka, and you'll notice that it doesn't look much like how Tikka comes from the factory, but something you'll hear often is about how nice the actions are on these. And you'll notice the action here has a swept bolt knob. So this is an aftermarket bolt knob. But if you're looking for an affordable way to get started and then have a lot of potential in the future for upgrades, the Tikka is not a bad choice. It's not going to fit any of these other Remington 700 options in terms of chassis. But Tikka has such a wide aftermarket, where it has so many options in the aftermarket, that I think if you have one, or you have the opportunity to get one inexpensively, while I prefer the clone ecosystem, this actually isn't a bad option. And I like these actions as they come from the factory. They're very smooth, and in my experience, they've been very good. And so I think if you can't do the Remington 700, this is a solid choice. So just to get all the comments, and I can already see you typing away furiously, what about the Accuracy International? What about this? What about that? This is just precision custom builds, okay? If you have the money to go out and grab an AI or Cadex or whatever, go for it. Like there's nothing stopping you. There's plenty of factory options that I really love. The purpose of this video is just to talk about custom actions. So don't get all butthurt in the comments because I didn't talk about your favorite brand, okay? I like AI. I haven't encountered a factory rifle that I don't love, like high-end, with maybe a couple exceptions. And it's probably worth mentioning. Savage, okay, got it. I started on one of those. If you are hunting, go for it. They got great triggers, but their bolts are terrible. And if you do high volume, they're not going to extract or feed reliably enough for competition use. Ruger RPR I like. I think they're solid, and I think they're feature rich for the price. The SIG PRS Cross is a good competition gun if you can get it at a steep discount. Okay, don't ever pay full price, but if you can get that at a steep discount, I think that's a decent choice. Just as soon as you get it, pull all the screws out, clean them with alcohol, Loctite them, and put them back in, because they don't do it at the factory for whatever reason. I've had a SIG Cross for years. This was one of the original SIG Crosses. Obviously, it's not the PRS model. But I got this back when they were still recalling all the guns, and this has been phenomenal. The bolt is amazing because it's guided. It's guided in this little channel, so the bolt just feels amazing. The trigger obviously can't be swapped or adjusted or anything, but the one that I had from the factory is just fine. The stock is solid. It's unbelievably accurate for a company like SIG that doesn't do any QC at all, apparently, and routinely produces just absolute dog tier guns. I have absolutely loved my SIG Cross. So that's just kind of my quick side tangent. But generally speaking, this is if you want to build custom, do Remington 700 footprint. Pick a manufacturer and send it. There's a million and they all seem really good. If I were to go build a new custom rifle tomorrow, I would probably do an ARC coup de grace action, just because they got a lot of cool features that I'm curious about. I've handled one but not spent any real time behind one, so that'd probably be my next choice. I like the Terminus. I've really come to love that controlled extraction feature though, which is just so fun. because you can, it's fun because like you can trickle one out into your hand, or you can reach in and pull around, or if there's like you're on a PRS prop and there's a barrel and it's like the pit of despair, and if you put a case in there, you're never going to see it again. Rather than using my normal ejection, which is going to banish that, you know, case to the shadow realm, I can either trickle it into my hand, or I can like whip the bolt back and put it in orbit and save it from being lost, which is fun. And I like being on the bench and be able to just, you know, trickle them back into like a bag or something. But generally speaking, you can't go wrong. I think we're in a great time for building custom rifles right now, and the barrel manufacturers are so good. The prefits are awesome. There's triggers for everything, and they're all great. So yeah, I really like so many of the options. The one thing I would say, and the one piece of advice I give everyone, is let your purpose drive your purchasing decision. Okay, so you need to decide exactly what you plan to do with the rifle before you build it. Okay, which is kind of the fun part, right? So if you want to shoot PRS and nothing else, you want a straight barrel, heavy as possible, chassis that's customizable that you can add weights to, and some slick high-speed action. If you want something to do more like NRL Hunter, or a rifle that you might compete with but you might also hunt with, start thinking medium contour barrels, chassis that you can, or stocks that you can add or subtract weights from, that have a baseline lightweight. So let what you plan to do decide how you build the rifle. And if you got the money, build one for each, and then specialize, right? I would caution you against using carbon fiber barrels. Like I have one there. I picked that one up in a bad trade, and the carbon fiber does not stand up to the heat. So I think for competitive use, it's a non-starter. Certainly, if you are hunting, it's probably fine, but not for competition use. So yeah, that's kind of the video. I know this is kind of a niche specific subject, which, you know, is kind of what I do here. I've avoided making this video because I've kind of moved on from bolt stuff. I still shoot them, but in terms of keeping my interest, it's not really there. So hopefully this is a good guide for you guys. In my opinion, brand doesn't matter. Just pick the features and the price and you should be fine. Good luck.